On today's episode of Locked On Stars, my reaction to Delandria being traded to San Jose and why it was the right move for both sides. Plus, a look back at the 25th anniversary of the 1909 Stanley Cup champion Dallas Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer, 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Happy Wednesday, Stars fans. The trade market is starting to heat up a bit within the National Hockey League, and the Dallas Stars have made a trade. Restricted free agent forward Ty Dellandrea has been moved to the San Jose Sharks for a 2025 fourth round pick. I'll give you my reaction to that trade and why it seems like the right move for both sides in this situation, and how the Stars' forward depth looks heading into next season with the departure of Ty Dellandrea. Plus, we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of the 1999 Stanley Cup champions. Mike Heika put out a great article on DallasStars.com that I will use to guide us through our final segment on today's episode of Locked On Stars. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. And we have some impending breaking news to talk about on today's episode, which is rather exciting this offseason. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So I was about to sit down and record an episode today, and then boom, the Dallas Stars have made a trade. Forward Ty Dellandrea has been moved to the San Jose Sharks for a 2025 fourth round pick, which was previously held by the Winnipeg Jets. And I think this makes sense on a lot of levels. On one hand, for Ty Dellandrea, he's still so young. He's just 23 years of age. He was drafted by Dallas in 2018, and he's been looking for a role to be an everyday NHL player, and that wasn't the case last season here in Dallas, and it probably wasn't going to be the case next year in Dallas, with him being a restricted free agent along with Sam Steele plus arbitration rights. Sam Steele is going to be a top priority for the Dallas Stars because he was an everyday player for Dallas a season ago, and he's a great makeup for that fourth line. Steele played in 77 games last year. Delandria only got into 42, and you can make the case he probably should have been in for more, but he only had 9 points in those 42 games. He was a -10 as well. He had that really great breakout season in 22-23. Ended up with 28 points in all 82 games. He had a really nice postseason, and he's pretty much been a really nice plug-and-play player for Pete DeBoer over the last couple of seasons. And I think having him go to San Jose, it gives him the opportunity to be an everyday NHL player. And I think you can make the case on a lot of teams he could easily slot in to the top 9. Now he goes to a place where there's going to be a lot of minutes available, and he'll sort of be a veteran presence. I know he's just 23, but he's been around the block, and he's been in a culture in Dallas that has a lot of leaders. And I think it's a great opportunity for him to get a lot of minutes in San Jose and be an everyday player, because the bottom six was just really crowded here in Dallas. You're talking about Sam Steele, and if Radek Faksa is back, along with Evgeny Dodonov, even Craig Smith, if he re-signs here in Dallas, that's just a lot of players you're trying to get into the fold. Plus, you're talking about Mavrik Bourque making the jump up, and where is he going to fit in? And maybe he just got caught in a weird situation here in Dallas where they have an embarrassment of riches, and Ty Dellandrea is 23, and you have Logan Stankoven that's 21, and Bourque that's 22, and Johnston that's 21. All these really young, talented forwards that have to get minutes and are going to be important pieces of this Stars core moving forward. And it's one of those situations where Delandria just really doesn't fit in with the plans. And I'm sure Delly wanted to be here, and I'm sure Jim Nill would have loved to have him back. I think both parties are better for this move. And we wish Ty Delandria nothing but the best. He's been a wonderful professional, number one. He's been a wonderful teammate. Never once did you hear anything bad about Ty Delandria, and he was always engaged. He was always working his butt off. You talk about one of the players that was out early at morning skates, along with Joe Pavelski a ton. That was Ty Delandria, working on his game, working on his craft, and now he gets an opportunity to go to San Jose. And I'm sure Delly talked to Joe about the opportunity to go play for the Sharks and maybe what that entails. And I think it's a great move for both sides. And we haven't heard the details of it quite yet, but maybe it's a conversation where at exit meetings, Delandria went in and said, hey, I want the opportunity to play somewhere. And if that's not going to be the case next year, I think it's best maybe we part ways, because from his standpoint, he just signed a 3-year contract in 2018, and he's looking to play for that next contract, right? And he'll get the opportunity to do that now and get the opportunity to really cash in if he has a few really nice seasons in San Jose, and he's going to get the minutes and opportunity to do that in San Jose. So I think that's sort of the breakdown in the context of the situation of why Delandria was dealt to San Jose for a 4th round pick. It is a 2025 4th round pick. So Dallas needs some assets somewhere, and they were able to get one by dealing Ty Delandria to San Jose this afternoon. But just 23 years of age, I think he has a stellar, maybe not stellar, but a really nice career ahead of him. I've always liked his style of play. He's just one of those guys, you know what you're going to get out of him every time he steps out on the ice. And that's really, really nice to have in a young player. And it's really nice to have as a young coach. So San Jose will probably fall in love with him quickly. And they have a young coach there. They have a really, really young squad. You look at the names and the ages of some of their players. Kim Costin, 25. Zetterlund is 24, who's a really nice player. Will Smith, the really talented player out of BC, he's just 19 years of age. Colin Graff is 21. Eklund is 21. Delandria fits right in, and they have a few veterans. Mikkel Granlund's sort of the older statesman at 32, along with Mike Hoffman, who's 34. They just picked up Barclay Goudreau off of waivers, excuse me. So he'll be a veteran piece they add, and they'll be an interesting team moving forward. Of course, they have Logan Couture that is hopefully going to come back off of IR. So he'll fit right into the fold there. And for Dallas, it's one less guy you have to worry about. And now you can find a way to fill in holes where you need moving forward into next season. Your 4th line is going to consist of Sam Steele, a la Radek Faksa, and then maybe Craig Smith, or even if you want to give an opportunity to Dodonov, who is sort of your Swiss Army knife at this point. You can kind of play him wherever. That is going to be the makeup of your bottom 6, along with probably some sort of combination of Mavrik Bourque. And you're thinking maybe Matt Duchene if he comes back into the fold. These are the things that the Stars are going to have to take care of in the next couple of months. So you still have to like where the Dallas Stars are set up front. Right now, they need to try to take care of the back end, make sure you shore that up, and you're still going to return a lot of the depth you had a season ago. And unfortunately for Delandria, he regressed this season, just having 9 points in the 42 games, albeit it's not like he got a ton of opportunities, but when he did, he usually made the most out of it. And that's exactly what you would expect out of a player like Ty Delandria. So once again, Ty Delandria has been traded by the Dallas Stars to the San Jose Sharks for a 2025 4th round pick. That is the deal here this afternoon. Delandria over to San Jose for a 2025 fourth round pick. So that's my initial reaction and why I think it's a great move for both sides. And we wish nothing but the best to Ty Dellandrea. What a teammate, what a professional. And yeah, those are the type of players, the glue guys that you remember forever and their contributions. And unfortunately, it was a situation in case where maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it would have been a better position for him. But with all the young, talented players the Stars have on the horizon, he just really never worked into the fold at this point in time. So there you go. Okay, let's segue into what Dallas has and possible other moves that could be made before July 1st as the Stars look to make some moves this offseason and try to fill some gaps in the roster. And we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets. It's also the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guaranteed. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can see the seat before you buy it, and that is huge, especially when you're going to a new arena, a new ballpark. I'll tell you, GameTime saved me a lot of time and trouble just this past week. I'm heading to Boston next week. I'm going to Fenway Park. It's one of my favorite stadiums in all of the United States. I've been there once. I'm going back for a second time. And Fenway can be a little funky. Sometimes you can get into some areas where there's a pole, there's some sort of railing that's in your way. It is really old. They've done some renovations, but the bones of it are still rather interesting. So you can get some pretty weird seats. But I went on GameTime. I found the section I wanted to sit in right field. There are no obstructions. It's going to be a beautiful view in the Boston summer night. And I'm excited to go back to Fenway Park. Just a couple of taps on GameTime. Boom. I found 3 tickets for me and a couple others. Boom. Got them. And we are ready to go in Fenway Park next week. So just like me, go ahead, download the GameTime app. It takes 30 seconds on your smartphone. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, Stars fans, be sure to check out Locked On Sports today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube. It's available on Amazon as well, bringing you the biggest sports storylines of the day. How about the Edmonton Oilers forcing a Game 6 in Alberta after trailing 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final? They have dragged the Cats back to Alberta for a Game 6. So the Stanley Cup final is beginning to heat up, which is a good sign because the NBA Finals, let's be honest, kind of a flop with the way the Mavericks played and it ending in 5 games. So at least we get one of our finals to reach a Game 6. And who knows, maybe Edmonton has one more in them to force a Game 7, which would be really, really remarkable. I did post a short on YouTube today, and I do want to respond to a comment, and I think it's very valid. It said they needed to trade Faksa. Ty was younger, cheaper version of Faksa. Nil must be cooking something up. And I'm sure Jim Nil is cooking something up. I'm sure it's just a pawn in the game of chess that he is moving. And I can understand wanting to move off from Radek Faksa. The tough thing is with him, I think there's multiple things when it comes to Radek Faksa. Pete DeBoer really, really likes him. Pete DeBoer loves Radek Faksa because he is exactly what he's looking for in a fourth line checking situation center iceman. He wins a lot of draws and he's responsible in his own zone. He played in 74 games this past year. I know his offense isn't there. He just had 19 points this season, but Pete DeBoer really likes him. And I think it's nice and comfortable to know that every single day you can just plug in Radek Faksa as your fourth line center. Plus, it's a little more difficult with Faksa, with him still having a year on his contract at 3.25. What's the market like for Radek Faksa? I don't know. I think it's probably a case where Radek Faksa is going to be in addition to a bigger piece for Dallas. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are looking for a player like Radek Faksa to bring into their lineup. He does have a modified no trade clause, plus Radek Faksa's 30 years old. How many teams are looking for a fourth line center at age 30, unless it's at the deadline where you're trying to add a piece to help you get over the hump? And even then, Radek Faksa isn't that type of player, due to the fact that he plays a pretty neutral style of game. He doesn't add a ton of scoring. You're just really looking to add a defensive-minded forward that can win faceoffs, and I don't know if the market's very hot for a player like Radek Faksa. On the other hand, Delandria, yes, he is cheaper, but he's 23 years of age. There's still some room to grow. He's still not in his prime of his career. He hasn't even had the opportunity to play every day in his prime. I know he did a year ago, but his games got cut in half this last season. Now he gets the opportunity to have more minutes then. I think Radek is probably a part of a bigger deal, sort of a throw-in. As I mentioned yesterday, by the way, I apologize. I thought I uploaded that yesterday on YouTube. It came out today. Sometimes my mind can't comprehend numbers and I forget which day it is. So it's coming out this afternoon along with this episode. And if you saw the fake trade I proposed yesterday, it was to receive John Carlson from Washington for Jason Robertson and Radek Faksa. You move Faksa along with that deal just to throw in a little extra. You sprinkle in Faksa. So I think that's where the case may be with not being able to move on from Faksa, at least with this deal to San Jose. It wouldn't make sense for the Sharks, and it certainly wouldn't make sense for the Dallas Stars at this point. That's another roster spot you would be giving up. So I think that's sort of the idea revolving around why you maybe not get rid of Faksa in this situation. There still may be something or a deal down the line where you're able to get rid of a Radek Faksa or move on from him. I think Dadonov would be an interesting piece at 35, and with him turning 36 next season, probably not going to be much of a market for him or be much of an opportunity for Dallas to move on. Faksa at 30, he still does have some sort of appeal with him having an expired deal at the end of next season. So possibly a trade deadline acquisition for a team if Dallas is looking to get a right-handed defenseman into the fold. You also have to put into perspective, if you're unable to re-sign Chris Tanev, Faksa may be a piece to get a right-handed defenseman in here before the start of the season. That is a very, very logical and possible situation the Stars have to deal with if they're unable to re-sign Chris Tanev. That leaves a gigantic hole in your back end. How are you going to make up with that? And you may have to part ways with a lot of the forward depth you have, and that includes Radek Faksa. It could include Dadonov. Look, you're staying away from guys like Johnston and Stankoven, of course, and even Mavrik Bourque, but those are the type of players you have to keep an eye on, or at least come to the realization you may have to part ways with them in order to get your team in a better spot than where it was a season ago, or in a better position to succeed next season. So there is a lot of moving parts at this stage of the off season. And I think it's intriguing, of course, and it does give you some food for thought in the next couple of weeks on how Dallas is going to move these chess pieces around, and maybe Delandria is just one of those chess pieces. It doesn't open up any cap space for them, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is just a small move in a bigger scheme of Jim Nill's master plan. I don't think it is. I just think it's a move that works best for both sides, but there possibly could be better, bigger moves on the horizon in the next few weeks. I will not rule that out at this point in time. So there you go. Thanks for the feedback on the YouTube short. Love when I get comments from you guys, and sometimes it's a perfect time to have a discussion about something that you're thinking about that I wasn't necessarily didn't necessarily have on my mind. So there you go. All righty, let's celebrate a little to finish up this episode of Locked On Stars, the 25th anniversary of the 1999 Stanley Cup champion Dallas Stars. We'll do that in just a moment. It's been 25 years since the Dallas Stars won the Stanley Cup in 1999, and another great piece on DallasStars.com from Mike Heika reliving the 25th anniversary of the Stanley Cup, along with Mike Modano, Brett Hull, even some tidbits from Craig Ludwig in here talking about the makeup of the team, the wonderful general manager, Bob Gainey, that put together a fantastic roster. And you look back at the absolute gauntlet they went through. And if you think Dallas would have gotten through Edmonton this year and maybe perhaps beat Florida in the Stanley Cup final, the gauntlet they would have gone through. But in 1999, they went through teams that had Curtis Joseph, Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek to win the Stanley Cup, some all-time Hall of Famers, and in one of the most important positions, of course, in net minding. And it was the first Stanley Cup for someone like Mike Modano and many others. You had Brett Hull to the mix, and of course, a high-scoring talent that scored the game-winning goal in the crease. And I know many Buffalo Sabres fans still bring this up to the day. And Brett Hull even mentioned in this article that goal, it's still controversial. And Craig Ludwig also said, if you ask anyone in Buffalo, they'll say no goal. If you ask anyone in Dallas, they'll say goal. I mean, the fact that they changed the rule the very next year tells you it was a bad rule in the first place. 25 years later, it kind of doesn't really matter anymore. Absolutely right, Craig. It does not matter. The Dallas Stars have been Stanley Cup champions ever since. And Madonna said, you always flash back to the particular moment when you're watching the playoffs right now. You see the impact on players who haven't won it, and you understand the wave of emotions they're feeling. It's an amazing memory. It will live forever. And that's where you start to feel really bad for the players like Joe Pavelski, who unfortunately were unable to get it done before their career came to a close. And look, we still can't rule out Joe Pavelski possibly coming back and giving it one last ride, maybe with the Dallas Stars or maybe with somebody else. And I love this piece for a number of reasons, but one of the main points they bring up in this article is about the fact that Mike Modano had to sacrifice some offensive numbers to play a more conservative style of hockey under Ken Hitchcock. And that sort of was the motto around this past year's Dallas Stars team. A lot more for a little less. Guys playing less minutes, not scoring over 100 points, not tallying 40 plus goals in a regular season for the benefit of the larger group. And they speak to some of that in this piece from Mike Heika. And Mike Modano, Brett Hull also applauded Mike for putting up wonderful numbers, even in that system that necessarily didn't breed a ton of offense. And I think that is a great resemblance to the Stars team we had this past season. And Daryl Ray brings it up a lot on the Podman Rush, along with Mike Heika, where teams that are ready to become champions start resembling champions. And Stars have been in the Final Four the last 2 seasons. They got knocked out pretty handedly against Vegas a few years ago. They were a bit closer this time against Edmonton. They're starting to resemble the really good teams and Stanley Cup champions. God, the amount of times in the last 6 years they've been knocked out by the eventual Stanley Cup champions. It could happen again if Edmonton is able to come back and win this series against Florida. They are very, very close, and they've been close very much over the past few years. And they have an opportunity to get right back in the mix next season. And I think hearing things like this piece from the 1999 Stanley Cup champions, you can see some resemblance. You can see some similarities, albeit a completely different league, and the cap is completely different. It's almost impossible to have a team like the one Bob Gainey put together in 1999. But there are some pieces and characteristics you can take out of that team that you saw a little bit in the Dallas Stars from a season ago. But yes, it has been 25 years. Please let me know your memories in the comment section below. Would absolutely love to hear them. And man, I would have loved the opportunity to go to Reunion Arena. My dad always speaks of Reunion Arena being just the absolute best, and how raucous that building got and how loud it used to get. I think I would have really enjoyed the opportunity to play, or not to play, but to have the opportunity to visit Reunion Arena. Unfortunately, by the time I was able, it was already long gone. But there you go, a little 25th anniversary article. Be sure to check it out on DallasStars.com for the full piece written by Mike Heika. That'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Got to react to a trade today. Delandria moved to San Jose for a 2025 fourth round pick. Excited for the moves that are to be done, and free agency right around the corner, along with the NHL draft, which is just 9 days away. A lot of stuff still being cooked up this offseason. Have a great Wednesday, Stars fans. Enjoy your Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.